but it is truly my pleasure to welcome not only a friend of the system, an informed champion of the system, nominated by President Barack Obama, the Honorable Thomas E. Perez. Tom became the nation's 26th Secretary of Labor in 2013. He is committed to making good on the promise of opportunity for all, giving every working family a chance to get ahead, and putting a middle-class life within reach of everyone willing to work for it. To accomplish this, his priorities include ensuring a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, connecting ready-to-work Americans with ready-to-be-filled jobs through skill programs like the Registered Apprenticeship and on-the-job training, promoting gender equity in the workplace, ensuring that people with disabilities and veterans have access to equal employment opportunity, and insisting on a safe and level playing field for all American workers. Clearly, all of us in this room are on the same page. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome the Secretary of Labor of the United States, Tom Perez.
I'm on top of the world, hey. I'm on top of the world, hey. Wake up this for a while now, paying my dues to the dirt. I've been waiting to smile, hey. The whole day for a while, hey.
Ron, thank you. Good morning. Man, there's a full house. It's Sunday morning. That's fantastic. Ron, thank you for your kind introduction. It was nice watching the video and kind of weird, you know. And thanks to everybody. Steve Hendrickson as well. I've been out in Boeing. We've done a lot of work together. We're going to do a lot more work together. Looking out in the audience there, seeing some dear friends from Cleveland, seeing Martin over there. You can't hide, Martin, okay? I see you over there. It's great to see old friends. And you know what? I come here today with an incredible reservoir of optimism, because I will tell you, and by the way, I can't guarantee, I've got these things to read, but sometimes I have a tendency to wander. So I just want to give you that fair warning, because I come to you with a sense of optimism, and here's why I am so optimistic. We are at a historic moment right now. We have an incredible opportunity, and why do we have this opportunity? We have this opportunity because you look at where our economy is. We've got the wind at our back. 60 months in a row of private sector job growth, thanks to all of you and so many workers and businesses and state and local governments and everyone working together. You know, the 3 months before the president took office, we lost 2 million jobs. Now you look where we are. In the depths of the recession, there were 7 job seekers for every job opening. Now they're about 1.7. Last year was the best year we've had since the late 90s. And the first 2 months of this year, that momentum has continued. Consumer confidence is going gangbusters. You know, insourcing is the order of the day. Outsourcing is yesterday's news. So that's one reason why I am excited. And now the other reason I'm excited is because, you know, this whole issue of skills and upskilling, you know, the work that you do has never been more front and center. You've got the vice president's report from a year ago. You've got the work from the president. You've got the Workforce Investment and Innovation Act. You've got so many opportunities right now. I was speaking to a group of workforce professionals a couple months ago who were in town, you know, nonprofits, philanthropy, business leaders, community college folks. And I asked them, and these are folks who are long in the tooth. And I said, you know, have you ever, and long in the tooth experience-wise, that was a compliment, okay? That was not meant to be, you know who you are, okay? And I'm not going to call out names, but you do know who you are. And I said, you know, have you ever, you know, because help me out, because I've been in and out of this local, state, and federal for like 15, 20 years, but, you know, you all been doing this longer. Have you ever seen a moment where the stars are aligning? And to a person, they said, no, this is it. And what I refer to, and the reason I come to you with such optimism and enthusiasm is this is what I call an Eisenhower moment. You know, President Eisenhower brought us the interstate highway system. And we can have a whole separate conversation about the need for infrastructure, physical infrastructure investment. And I could take a long time and speak equally passionately about that. But this Eisenhower moment is about building the skills superhighway. We have stars aligning to build that skills superhighway. And so workforce investment boards are front and center in this. And if someone asks you, what are you doing right now? Your answer is, I'm part of a broader movement, because we have an opportunity right now to build a skills superhighway. And that's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act is doing. That's exactly what the Vice President's report last year on job-driven training was doing. That's exactly what we were doing when we worked with organizations like Deloitte to help build a toolkit for those who are long-term unemployed, helping employers and workers connect. That's exactly what we're talking about. So when we're talking about a skills superhighway, if you're building a roadway, you got to have blueprints. And when you're building the skills superhighway, you got to have blueprints as well. And I think our blueprint has 4 basic principles that are really what we're all about. And this is what you're doing every day. And number 1 is, it's got to be demand driven. And you have driven that through workforce investment boards. The days of train and pray are over. And I hate to use train and pray on Palm Sunday. My late mother would not be happy with me right now. I take a back seat to no one in my commitment to prayer, but prayer is not a useful word when you're talking about job training. We don't train widget makers if no one's hiring widget makers. And you've moved away from that. We've moved away from that. That's why I spend so much time with Penny Pritzker, because we work together. Because if you're going to create jobs, you got to talk to the job creators. And that's why last week we were at this thing called Select USA, where we had literally thousands of businesses from foreign governments who want to come and invest here in America, working together. And we did an entire plenary on workforce issues, because that is one of the first questions folks ask. So principle number 1 is demand driven. And WIOA has embedded into the DNA of our federal workforce dollars that principle. And you have already been doing that. And sector strategies, all of these industry partnerships are all about understanding demand needs and then putting them into place and marrying our training programs with the demand. So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2 is, I think, understanding that there are multiple pathways to prosperity. And there's obviously the pathway of a 4-year degree or above. And the education dividend is undeniable. The more education you have, the greater the odds of your punching your ticket to the middle class. And those needs continue. I was with one of my favorite people last weekend on the phone, a guy named Freeman Hrabowski. Some of you may know him. He's the president of UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. He has cracked the code on so many remarkable things. His university is one of the most prolific producers of minority scientists and engineers. And you look at the entering class at the Harvard Medical School, and you will see top 5 or 6 schools represented. UMBC is routinely in there as a result of Freeman's leadership, connecting that pipeline. So 4-year higher ed continues to be remarkably important. And he's building partnerships in cyber and elsewhere, recognizing that 4-year higher ed needs to do more to work together to understand where our demand needs are. But 4-year higher ed is one important, but one pathway to prosperity. And that's why the president has been so invested in community colleges, because, in my experience, and I'm guessing it in your experience, community colleges have been that secret sauce to success. I refer to the Department of Labor as Match.com. We connect job seekers, Match.com, Palm Sunday, Train and Pray. There's all sorts of themes that we will move forward with this morning. And the notion, community colleges for us when we were in Maryland were the secret sauce of success. And, I remember this woman, Ginny, who was a single mom. Her teenage daughter, she had a really rough upbringing. She was in the criminal justice system, in and out, and she had talent. And through a partnership that we had with Anne Arundel Community College, she was able recently to get a cybersecurity certificate. She's making $52,000 a year, and her daughter is damn proud of her, as she should be. And you all know examples of that. We could go around each and every table and you could tell the stories of community colleges who have helped folks. And you know, it's really interesting because some people have looked at the president's proposal to make community college accessible to everyone, regardless of your income. Or, you know, accessible to folks who cannot afford to do it, is what I meant to say. And you know, 100 years ago or so, there was this conversation going on in America where there were some people saying, you know, why do we need free public K-12 education? And if you look at some of the history books in the late 19th century, people were saying that's kind of wasteful. We don't need, you know, universal access to free public education, K-12. That just doesn't, that's not necessary. Well, you know, those folks were wrong, to state the obvious. And those folks who led that effort were prescient. And similarly, today, we know that, you know, a high school degree all too frequently is just not enough. And that is why when I go to places like Tennessee, and I applaud Governor Haslam for his leadership in making community college accessible. This is not partisan stuff, my friends. This is not blue or red. That's why I'm so excited. This is one of those few issues where we can work together. And we had Governor Haslam at the White House about 2 weeks ago, talking with philanthropy, community college leaders, elected officials. And he was just remarkable in outlining how they have done it in Tennessee. And so community college accessibility is another key in building our skills superhighway. A third element of our skills superhighway is lifting up apprenticeship. You know, I just got back from Germany a while back, and it's not hard to figure out why the youth unemployment rate in Germany is less than half the youth unemployment rate in the United States. Because, you know, when you're 15, 16 years old, you have multiple pathways to prosperity, all of which have stature. And, you know, for some reason in this country, and this is not a partisan observation, it's happened for the last 2-3 decades, we have devalued apprenticeship. Even though every dollar we spend in apprenticeship has a $27 return, that's pretty darn good. And apprenticeship, I always talk about, and I hear from parents who say, I don't want an apprenticeship. You know, my kid's going to college. And what I say to them is, apprenticeship is the other college, except without the debt. And then they say, whoa, wait, tell me more. And I tell them more. And what I tell them is, apprenticeship gives you portable and stackable credentials. You get that IBEW apprenticeship. And I've gone to some of the classes that our friends at the IBEW put on for folks who are getting their journeyman license. And you know what? I don't know a damn thing of what's on that board. That stuff is hard stuff. And it's remarkable. And what we've done through our Registered Apprenticeship Community College Consortium is that we are building agreements with community colleges. 175 community colleges have agreed to accept these credentials. So when you're done with your apprenticeship, you're already 2/3 of the way there to your associate's degree. So you truly are on that higher ed superhighway. And apprenticeship, as you know, is not simply for the skilled trades, although, you know, you go to places like Boeing, and I remember my trip to the assembly line in Washington State, and there are a lot of folks getting ready to retire. So we need to do more there. But our investment, our $100 million that are on the street right now, and I hope you're on our website looking at it because it's open till the end of April. What we're trying to do is lift up apprenticeship, not only in the skilled trades, but also in IT and cybersecurity, healthcare, logistics. There's a remarkable apprenticeship program that UPS operates not far from here, about 10 miles away. When we announced the $100 million investment, we did it in Philadelphia with Mayor Nutter, a remarkable IT apprenticeship program that's connecting 17 and 18-year-old kids, many of whom are kids of color, to the workforce system and to the IT opportunities in the workforce system. And, you know, I got 2 teenage kids. And, you know, one thing I know about them is They love gadgets. They're good at gadgets. And so we're translating that interest in gadgets that people have into a career path. So we need together to lift up apprenticeship. That's why the president has invested so much in apprenticeship. That's why we need your help in building that on-ramp in our skills superhighway to apprenticeship. So that's another basic principle that's operating in our skills superhighway. But we're also working on the redesign of high school and K-12 education. And let me give you just one example. And I work so long and so closely with Arnie Duncan because, this is a continuum. And that's why we're imploding stovepipes across the federal government. I was at a school called Sarah Good Academy in Chicago. It's a 6-year high school, very similar. Some of you have been to P-TECH maybe in Brooklyn. 6-year high school where we have partnership with industry. In the case of Sarah Good and P-TECH, the industry partner is IBM. The curriculum is all open source, so anybody could replicate this model. And I was meeting kids, and here's what they had in common at Sarah Good. High minority, high poverty, high performing. Every kid in that school was aiming high. They wanted to be, I'd ask them, what do you want to do when you're done with high school? And they'd say, well, I want to go to MIT. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a rocket scientist. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a lawyer. I'd take them aside, talk them out of it. But the other folks, I'm moving forward. And because they have these mentoring opportunities, their work is not just, in the classroom. They're seeing the applications of their work. And if they want, they can get a free community college degree out of this. A lot of them leave and they go and do the 4-year higher ed. But there is no reason why the Sarah Good model, the P-TECH model, can't be replicated in every community across this country. And we have given out grant money toward that end. And workforce boards have been important partners in thinking through how we do that. And so, these are contours of what I'm getting at when I say, that basic principle of workforce. There are multiple pathways to prosperity. That high school redesign is one. The apprenticeship is another. The community college accessibility being another, 4-year being another. But that's only one set of principles. We know that another key principle, and you are working on this every day, is that you always have to take the job seeker where you find him or her. And what do I mean by that? We need to continue to build on-ramps for people with disabilities so that we stop judging the word disability by the first 3 letters and start judging by the last 7 letters of that word. And you are doing so much work in government and local communities across this country. And WIOA gives us that opportunity as well. I had a privilege of convening the first meeting of our working group that's helping us think through how we advance opportunities for employment for people with disabilities. We are fortifying that on-ramp. We need on-ramps for veterans, and we're fortifying that on-ramp. And so many businesses in this room have taken pledges and have gone and put those pledges into action. And what I learned from every employer is, what I love about hiring veterans? They not only have the hard skills, they have the equally essential skills of teamwork, coming together. They know how to work under pressure. And we need to continue to fortify that on-ramp. We need to fortify that on-ramp for people who have a prior record. I spoke at a remarkable summit 3 days ago that brought together Republicans, Democrats, people across the ideological spectrum who understand that we are a nation of second chances. And what I talked about there was we not only need to think about second chances, but we need to make sure that folks have first chances by making sure we get access to opportunity in every community. And the largest private employer in my home state of Maryland is Johns Hopkins. The most prolific employer of former offenders in Maryland is Johns Hopkins. And if I had my friend Ron Peterson, the CEO of Hopkins Hospital here, he would speak with great passion about how this is not an act of charity. This is an act of enlightened self-interest. And they have phlebotomists, they have x-ray techs, they have other allied health professionals who have they went off the rails for a while. But, let he who has not sinned cast the first stone. And they understand that. And former offenders are a huge part of their workforce. You know, I'm a firm believer that there's no such thing as a spare American. And as we build these on-ramps, we need to keep that in mind. So many immigrants that I meet, immigrants with a college degree who are limited English proficient, if you look at the data, they are earning what a US-born person with a high school degree would meet. So we need to have that on-ramp for basic English instruction so that we can take folks who have skills and they want to upskill even more. That's what this system is about. That's what the on-ramps and off-ramps are about. That's what the concept of taking the job seeker where you find him or her is all about. And that's what the skills superhighway needs to have. And the final thing that really, I think, brings it all together is the notion that we need to do partnership at scale. Everything you're doing in your work or in your local WIBs is all about partnership. But now what we have to do, if we're going to tackle the challenge of partnership at scale, the reason that's so important is because everywhere I go, I hear the same story. And it's a good story. Business owner A says, I'm bullish about my future. I want to grow my business, and my biggest challenge is I need to make sure I have that skilled workforce to compete. That's the conversation that's occurring literally in every community across the country. And the reason I know that is because I've had the privilege of traveling north, south, east, and west. I will be in Boston tonight, LA tomorrow, San Diego Tuesday, Seattle Wednesday, back home Thursday. And I'm confident I'll hear the same story all week. And it's a good story, but it's the reason why we have to do partnership at scale. And what we're doing at the federal government is we are imploding stovepipes at scale. I was with some farmers last week and I said, silos are great for farms. Silos are not good for government. And you know what? That's what we're doing. We're imploding silos. I was with Tom Vilsack in Atlanta 10 days ago. And why was I there? Because the food stamp program, we are using money from the Farm Bill, and we're using partnership and stovepipe implosion to connect people who are on food stamps to the workforce system so they can get access to in-demand skills and they can punch their ticket to the middle class. And that's what it's all about. Because if you are a 22-year-old veteran who was honorably discharged and you're living at home with your mother or your father and you're collecting food stamps and TANF and you want to get job training, I have just implicated 6 agencies or so who have federal job training dollars. And what we're doing is we are imploding stovepipes, creating partnerships, creating career pathways, because I believe it's critically important that the federal government model that behavior. And when I was in local and state government, I remember asking Governor O'Malley, give me a few months to figure out our workforce system. And I remember asking people, why are we so stovepiped? And someone said, that's because the federal government does it. And I said, well, if someone else is doing something stupid, do we have to replicate that? And so we imploded stovepipes. We took over correctional education. We combined it into the workforce system so we could build better pathways for folks who were in jail so they could get out. We helped immigrants get access. We met immigrants who were literally sweeping floors, who were doctors and nurses in their countries of origin. And all they needed was a little English language training. And we could help them with that. And now they're doctors and nurses. And we don't have to engage in the practice of stealing doctors and nurses from the Philippines and South Africa and elsewhere. And so we've got so much talent right here. And when we implode those stovepipes and we take that partnership at scale, we can do this. And we have this remarkable moment now, but I need your help. And that's what I'm leaving you with, because we have an absolute bipartisan consensus here in Washington. And that is good news because we have bipartisan consensus on so few things. But I need your help here as we continue to build this movement. You look and compare the public workforce system investment of federal dollars in the U.S. with other countries, and we stink. I don't know if I could be any clearer. It is Palm Sunday, so I'll just stick with the word stink. We're not very good. And you know what? When you have $1 investment in apprenticeship that gives you a $27 return, that's a darn good return on investment. And so that's what we're doing right now. We need to take the momentum and the proposed rules to implement WIOA. They're at the Federal Register. So they're going to be out on the street in a matter of days or a week or two, however long it takes them to work their magic there. And the reason it's taken them a little longer is because the regulations or the proposed rules are over 1,000 pages, because there's a lot of change. And the reason there's a lot of change is because we had a lot of conversation with many of you, and I want to thank you for your help. But I want to ask you for your continued help, because we do have this Eisenhower moment right now. And one thing I've learned living in this town and working in the areas that I've worked in is that you've got to understand when all the stars are aligned. I work on a lot of things right now that I know the return on investment is not going to occur for maybe a few years. You know, civil rights and labor rights are about persistence. Civil Rights Act of 1964 was first introduced in 1948. Family and Medical Leave Act took 15 years to pass. And so some things take a long time, but then some things, their time comes. And you got to know when the time has come, and then you got to seize the moment. The time has come for this movement of building our skills superhighway. And we need your help so that we know what works. And so what we have to do is scale up what works. And we need help from Congress. And I applaud the efforts of Chairman Klein and Senator Alexander and Congresswoman Fox and Senator Murray and so many other folks who worked on this. They have done great work. And I want to carry that momentum because, you know, here's the bottom line. You know, we may play different instruments. You are out running businesses. You're out in the WIB. I'm here in the federal government. I see some of my local workforce partners here and state folks here. But the bottom line is we are all in the same orchestra. You're playing a different instrument. We're playing a different instrument. But we're all in that same orchestra. And it is the orchestra of opportunity. We need to work to expand opportunity. We have a remarkable moment in time right now where, you know, everywhere I go around the world, people say to me, I wish we had your economy. And then just last week, talking to all these businesses saying, I want to learn more because I want to do business here because this is where the action's at in your communities, in every community across America. So as you think about this week, as you think about this conference, think about the fact that you are part of what's happening in the Seattle area. You're part of what's happening in the Baltimore area. You're part of what's happening in, you know, the San Diego area. But you're part of what's happening all around this country. You're part of a bigger movement. And we need to build that movement and make sure we sustain that movement and involve our congressional colleagues in that movement and make the case that, you know what, the dollars you're investing are producing a remarkable return. And if we invested more, we could get an even better return because there were 1 million people we couldn't serve last year because of sequestration. That's 1 million people who wanted to get stuff done. They wanted to upskill, but we couldn't get to them. And so you are uniquely situated to help us, not only to build these on-ramps and off-ramps of our skills superhighway, but to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place, the funding in place, so that we can sustain it. So I hope you have a great conference here. I can tell you, and I want to leave you with a thank you, because I've worked on this stuff at a local level. I see that you're critical importance. I've worked on this stuff at a state level with state workforce investment boards. I saw their critical role. And I have the privilege of doing this at a federal level, which enables me to see the phenomenal work that you all are doing. And if you haven't figured out, it fires me up. Okay? I tend to be quiet, but it's Sunday morning. I got a lot of energy. And you know why? Because this is about the Ginnies of the world. Folks who are so hardworking and want to punch their ticket to the middle class. This is about these businesses that I meet who don't want to cannibalize as their workforce strategy. You know, that zero-sum game where I steal from you and then you steal back from me. That's not going to work, folks. We can do a better job. We are doing a better job. And with your help and leadership, I am confident that this Eisenhower moment is going to turn into a movement. And historians are going to talk about it as the seminal moment in how we created the thriving middle class of the 21st century. This is middle class economics, my friends, 101. And you are at the forefront. So thanks a million and have a great conference.